I've always told you this, and I kind of coined this, 6 years ago on the show with you, actually, while we were just talking one night. And I said, every day my feelings on what we're going to do, who's going to win, who's going to lose, and what the chances are, it's like a meter, and it changes. And I'm honest about it. I don't, I don't defend stuff that I don't think is worth defending or whatever. I tell you the truth, and a lot of times people do not want to hear it, and they get angry when I say what is really happening out there, and that's fine. But here's the deal. I actually think today that Kamala is going to lose. Today my feeling is that Kamala is going to lose actually by a good margin. I actually feel that way. And the reason why I feel that way is manifold, but one of the biggest reasons why is this was her chance to, this literally, everything about her campaign, everything about her being installed and Joe being removed by Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and what's his name in the House from New York, Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader of the House. Everything that was done by the people that control this party, primarily Barack Obama, has the same people that Barack had in the office with Joe and controlling things with Joe are the same people that have left and are running Kamala's campaign, and are the same people that are going to be installed into her office in the same levels. And in fact, more Obama officials are being installed, former Obama officials. So she has little choice in what happens. And she's grateful for that, truthfully. Her and Obama were besties before she ever ran for Attorney General and before he ever ran for United States Senator. You have to understand that. He supported her publicly and campaigned for her, and she campaigned for him, by the way. Here's the thing. This was her one big pick, and she picked Tim Walz. This is her one big opportunity, and with her own gut and her own decision, and she chose Tim Walz, a man who we learned a lot more about since yesterday. He literally he left his military unit right before they were being deployed to Iraq. He also is being accused of, and I believe he has, he's guilty of stolen valor. And how is he guilty of stolen valor? By saying that he went off to combat, and the rifles he uses in combat should not be on our streets. He never saw combat. He didn't see a day of combat, even an hour or a minute of combat. He never went into the theater. He was deployed to Italy for Operation Iraqi Freedom or Enduring Freedom or something. He did support roles. He never saw combat. Now, if he did see combat, if he's telling the truth and it's not stolen valor, that means he saw combat in Italy, guys. Now, that means he's been alive and serving our country since World War II. Was he in the mountains, in the hills of Italy, fighting against Mussolini? Is that possible? Could it be? I don't think so. We have audio of him saying that. We have audio of, and I'll play that coming up. We have audio of his wife saying that she opened up her window so she could smell the burning tires and the burning city of Minneapolis. She thought it was great. You'll hear that in a little bit. Harkening back memories of, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. She loves the smell of burning city in the morning. You hear her talk about that. He also is called Tampon Tim. Did you know this? You didn't know this? He's called Tampon Tim. He put tampons in bathrooms for 4-year-old boys. Now, if I was a boy in school and I saw that, I would get every tampon from every boy's room and I'd put it in a pile on the playground. I'd light it on fire. I'd have me a tampon fire on the school grounds and be like, I don't know who did that. I'm not telling anybody that lives in Minnesota to do that, and I do have listeners in Minnesota. One of my dearest friends of all time, a police officer in Minneapolis, St. Paul, listens to me nightly. And I am not trying to encourage people. He's going to have to go arrest these people burning mounds of tampons in 4th grade. He's a sanctuary state for trans. If your son wants to abandon you in Texas and go by himself as a 12-year-old and get his hoo-ha, his wanker cut off, and get a vajayjay put in there instead, he can do that legally in Minnesota, and they will not cooperate with the Texas authorities nor the federal authorities. If your son runs away right now at 12 years of age and goes there and says, cut my genitals off, Tim Walz will legally protect him, not cooperate with Texas, and will not cooperate with parents. He is your parent for your child, and he will cut that off himself if he has to. And he's for killing a baby all the way up to the day of inception. He's literally made it. There's no age limit on abortion, and you can kill the baby right before it comes out. He made it that way. This guy is wild. He is a perfect pick for Kamala to go into the darkest realms of the party, which is what Van Jones said yesterday. I'll play that for you, too. With racism with Jew hatred. Jew hatred has been rewarded, and that's why Kamala did not pick Governor Shapiro. I'll get into that in a bit, but first, let's go to James and Cisco. My questions. Hey, I haven't even asked a question. Here's James at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Why do you think Kamala, on her 17th day, not one interview or press conference, 17 days, she took the presidency from Joe, and 17 days, she's not done one interview with the press. J.D. Vance literally was on the same tarmac today as Air Force Two. He walked over to Air Force Two and talked to the press. He said, you guys must be lonely. He had interviews with the press in front of her plane. Freaking awesome. Gangland. Yes. Okay, why do you think Kamala's hiding from interviews and press conferences? How likely do you think it is that Kamala's going to lose? By the way, she's going to lose because once she starts talking in press conferences, she will lose and everything will fall apart. That is why it's delayed. More on that in a minute. And the third question is, what does her choice of VP say about the direction she wants to take this country? What does the choice of VP say about the direction she's going to take this country? And if you elect her, how likely is it that Kamala's going to lose? And why do you think Kamala's hiding from interviews and press conferences? James and Cisco, WBAP.
Hey, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate the job that you do, too. You're doing a great job, and keep it up to help save America. Okay, you said that Kamala is going to lose by a big margin.
I didn't say big margin. There's no way it's going to be a big margin, but she's going to lose by a good margin. I guess I should have. I mean, I'm thinking 5%, 4% or greater. That's just my feeling. I'm
for Trump, but I disagree with you. Let me tell you
no
why.
Problem.
Because the Democrats are going to cheat. They wanted to get the polls up close. They didn't have them close enough with Biden. That's why they got rid of him. Now the polls are close. The media helped get them up. So now they're close enough to where they can sneak votes in there and cheat. And so she's going to win by cheating. And okay, who's going to hold?
Well, let me respond to that. Let me respond to that. We should win by a margin that you cannot cheat. Meaning we should win states not by 40,000 or 60,000 or 20,000 votes, because if you win by a margin enough to not cheat, then they can't win, and that's what we must do. And that is the job of Trump, exactly. The job of the Republican Party of the state of Michigan, the Republican Party of the state of Wisconsin, where I lived for about 4 or 5 years out of my life, and my son was born, and the same, et al. For the other states.
Okay. Well, I just think they're going to cheat to try to win, and nobody's going to hold them responsible. I
think that the more people think like that, the more they're going to stay home. They're going to cheat anyway. I think it's defeatist, and I think it's our job to win by a margin that you cannot cheat.
It is. Okay, if they do cheat, who will hold them responsible? Who's going to go through the
That's Trump's job. Who's in charge of the Republican Party? Who's taken over? I'm not knocking him for doing this. He's done a good job so far overall, really. Who's in charge of the Republican Party? Whose daughter-in-law now runs the Republican Party, took over for the deposed Ronna McDaniel. Laura Trump, and it's on her. And I'm praying that she can. And by the way, the former guy who was in charge of the state of Michigan, he and the whole realm of Republicans with an intra-Republican party fight in Michigan, which they had to have this. They've been all thrown out. One of the guys is a lawyer, I think it is, and I read something, in one of the outlets, I think it was the Journal or someone like that. They said, I've been thrown. He's like, I haven't heard from anybody yet. But actually, that might be because they've replaced him with somebody who will actually do the work that you're concerned about. You understand? Versus a McCain or Romney-style Republican. So this is all Trump. So it's up to him, and he's a good executive. So we'll see what he does. That's kind of.
I've heard that the RNC has hired a bunch of lawyers, and they're training pollsters, and I hope that's true.
Yeah, where's the ground game? Because we're going to lose hard because of the ground game. The Democratic ground game is insane, and these people have gotten excited because they don't have a dead man running. Weekend at Bernie's is not running. And by the way, Walz from Michigan and Kamala they lied to us. They both said for a long time now that Joe's great. Kamala's the one that really lied. She's going to have to answer that every week, saying, I met with him every week and had lunch with him every week regularly for the whole 4 years, and he's great. He's a champ. She covered it up. So she's going to have to answer that. In fact, in MSNBC, of all places, they had like 5 independents in Wisconsin they sat down with, and they were shocked to hear 2 independents tell them, and I played it for you on the air one night, it was a couple weeks ago, that they think Kamala covered up, and because of that, they can't vote for her, they don't trust her. That's 2 independents out of 5 sitting there just having a talk. And also, remember the Wall Street Journal piece I told you about, where they were interviewing women in the suburbs. Ooh, that's where you got to win. That's whoever's going to win the race, most likely. And the women are, 2 out of 4 of them said they're going to vote for Trump. Some who voted for Hillary in 2016, for example, and voted for, I think, Biden, the last one. And they're like, I cannot afford the house. I literally can't afford this house anymore. And others are like, I used to be able to afford this house. And then they interviewed a Marquette University pollster guy, and he literally said Marquette University is the major top private university of Milwaukee, and he said literally, if you could make $50,000 and buy a house in these areas in 3-4 years ago, you can't anymore. That's the effect. All right, coming up next, we got Mike and Keller plus your call. Oh my gosh, you're going to hear some of the audio I was telling you about. It's going to be wild and incredible. Coming up next, all that juicy audio from Walz, her VP pick, and Kamala, and Van Jones, how this is a bad pick, possibly. Next. Okay, that's the guy who took over for Tim Walz when he quit as they were put on notice they were going to be deployed to Iraq, and that's when he left and ran as a politician. Unfortunately, it's getting worse for Tim Walz tonight. The the Minnesota National Guard has confirmed that Tim Walz did not retire as a command sergeant, which is on his website, and he says it publicly that he's a command sergeant major. He did not, like he has publicly claimed. They say he was demoted because of what he did. Army Lieutenant Colonel, which is much higher rank than he was. My dad was an LTC in the National Guard before he retired. He was an LTC for many years and a battalion commander. This guy was either at the same rank as my dad or even higher. He had 500 troops. They're all starting to speak out, and it's bad. They're all saying he left us and we served. They say, here's me. There's pictures now showing up in videos. Here's me in Iraq serving while Tim Walz ditched us. Here's me serving. I'm serving over here. Here's me in the theater in combat, and Tim Walz without Tim Walz. It's bad. Look at this. Today, Army LTC Kristen Auge made the statement to the news, Just the News. Walz retired as a Master Sergeant in 2005 for benefit purposes. He did not complete additional coursework at the U.S. Army Sergeants Major Academy. His website claims Command Sergeant Major Walz retired from the Minnesota Guard in 2005. The video showed it details how he quit the Army. He abandoned us. But even the Minneapolis Star Tribune confirmed it, which is the biggest paper in the entire state. Let's go to Mike and Keller. Here's the question. And by the way, one other quick point before we go to Mike and Keller plus your call. I think Kamala's going to lose by a decent margin now. Why do you think Kamala's hiding from interviews and press conferences? What does she have to hide? How likely do you think it is that Kamala's going to lose? And what does her choice of VP say about the direction she wants to take this country? Here's another indicator that she's going to lose. Watch this. The second person from the squad has been removed. The second person lost today. Cori Bush lost in her race. AIPAC, the strong Jewish PAC, dropped $8.5 million, got her out. This is the second one AIPAC knocked out of the race. The first one was Jamal Bowman. Two out of 5, I think it is, of the squad, or 2 out of 4 of the squad, something of that nature. AOC's left, and the radical Islamist Rashida Tlaib is left. I don't know if there's anybody left. I might be missing one, but I think that's it. It's amazing, guys. It's amazing. AIPAC's going to probably the Jewish vote. Her plane and his plane were on the tarmac. So he just literally walked over to her plane. All the press is waiting for her. She won't talk to any of them. She does no interviews. She's done no press conferences for 17 days. And so he walked over to the press, who she won't talk to, and he talked to him. And he said, I figured you guys would be lonely. I came over. You might not have heard it so clearly, but And he talked to the press, and he did some interviews with them. And then he walked back to he was right by there. So you see the cluster of Secret Service that are guarding him. So nobody was threatened and nobody got whatever. They were panties up in a bunch. And you see the cluster that's out there, and they come together, and then he starts talking to the press. It's great. You can see that on my Twitter feed, y'all. And by the way, I haven't told you this. Everybody's calling him Tampon Tim. Tampon Tim has been trending on Twitter. It's on my Twitter feed, Facebook feed, and on my Instagram feed. They're all at the same thing. If you haven't been following me, what in the name of what is wrong with you? At Chris Crock Show, CHRISKROK. That's CHRISKROK. Also, we have brand new video coming out from 2009. A veteran confronting Tim Walz' staff over claims he served in Afghanistan. The veteran said Walz could go to jail for violating the Stolen Valor Act of 2006 for claiming he served in Afghanistan when he didn't. That is a video from 15 years ago, guys. This is not going to end well for him. This is not going to end well for him. And I think she might end up ditching him, which we'll get to in a minute and coming up next. But right now, I'm going to add something into the fold. Second squad member Cori Bush tossed out in the primary today. Another major lift from Jewish groups, and I'm very proud and happy that they did that. Most of them will not vote for Republicans, but many are now because of this. It's a choice between their existence and death, which is what many of the large chunk of the Democrat Party, a large enough chunk, I should say, a decent sizable chunk of the Democrat Party now wants to abandon Israel and support Hamas terrorists. As I mentioned, Trump's winning the New York Jewish vote now over Kamala, which is stunning. Van Jones, I played it for you in a little bit, that she caved into the darker parts of our party, anti-Semitism, by choosing Walz instead of Shapiro he's a rock star in Pennsylvania. And I think she chose him because this is who she really is. She's a radical leftist. And in fact, I have her saying that, unfortunately. She said so many things. Let's see, she said this. Hold on, my little audio button's got to be pushed. Here we go.
We have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. and you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
And then there's this.
Yeah, I am radical.
New Trump ad, by the way, by MAGA PAC.
Yeah, I am radical. I do believe that we need to get radical.
Radical Kamala raised money for a fund that bailed out violent criminals, that freed murderers and rapists. They even bailed out a domestic abuser. Days later, he murdered a man and defunded police.
The idea that more police equals more safety, that's just wrong. We have to have this conversation about redirecting resources.
Kamala Harris, dangerously liberal.
I am radical.
Make America Great Again is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I also have a list of her radical left positions that are going to stun a lot of people. If anybody wants to call in that is supporting her, I'd love to talk to you about why you are. Won't be negative, won't be nasty. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Just found this out today. Kamala and her husband both separately donated $1,000 last year to a Defund the Police group. Last year. Defund the police. She cut a check to $1,000, and he cut a check for $1,000 to the Defund Police, and to make Washington a permanent sanctuary city for illegals. So she gave $1,000 last year to defund the police in D.C. and to give a permanent sanctuary city for illegals. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz also is a sanctuary state for illegals. He gives them free health care. He gives them driver licenses, and there's many other things that are shocking. And he puts tampons in every restroom for fourth graders throughout the state of Minnesota, which is why it's called Tampon Tim, which the meme is on my website, and my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You should check out at Chris Crock Show. Now, let's go to Mike and Keller here. One last point to point out here, and plus your call. Questions are this. With a second squad member being tossed out in a few weeks, and with the Jewish vote and the Jewish power of their PACs, which I'm very happy about them, they have removed the second squad member. How do you think a second member of the squad being tossed out today affects Kamala's chances this fall? Remember, she went radical, but she could have gone with a Jew who was much more popular and much more Main Street, middle of the road. He's for school vouchers, for example. He's rabidly pro-Israel, and that's why he was not picked by her. So how do you think a second member of the squad today being tossed out affects Kamala's chances this fall? How do you think Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, with a 60% approval rating in Pennsylvania, is being Jewish? How do you think his being Jewish affected Kamala's choices of him not being the VP nominee? And do you think the squad's slow demise shows what's in store for cackling Kamala? I do. And does this mean cackling Kamala's chances of winning just went down? I do. Let's get back to Mike and Keller, who had something to say about this a little bit more. By the way, our number is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Mike and Keller, thanks for holding. What do you got, WBAP?
Yes, sir. What I was saying about, you said about influence, you know that George Soros she's in his pocket, too.
Oh, yeah, that's so is Hillary. Hillary loves him and stuff like that. They're all in his pocket, yes.
Okay, but like I said about Judge Joe Brown, he broke down her lineage, and you don't see MSNBC, none of them refuting him.
What did he basically say?
He basically said he met her father. He broke down her heritage being Indian and her father being Jamaican, which is on her grandfather and her grandparents' side. The only person that was black in their heritage is somebody who worked on their property or something, and they wasn't even related to it at all.
You're saying that Kamala Harris is not black?
No, she's Jamaican. She's of Jamaican descent. Jamaicans would not call themselves black.
Did you know her? Go ahead.
Jamaicans, a true Jamaican would never say he's black because then they associate you being an African American. Jamaicans are very proud about their heritage.
I would be too. It's beautiful. I was there a couple of years ago. It was amazing. I loved it. It's very poor and a very scary country because of crime. But I will tell you this. Did you know her parents her dad's the descendant of slave owners?
Yes.
The Jamaican father, yeah. Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is amazing. But the thing about it, she was Indian 4 years ago when she became the first Indian senator.
You have to admit, though, this is a losing thing, not for you personally, Mike and Keller, but you have to admit this is a losing thing for Trump and Vance to be talking about. If they're talking about this at all, they're losing. Is that fair to say? Because it'll turn off.
Right, it is fair to say. They keep bringing this up, and they keep whitewashing him, talking about, he's being racist, but yet none of them can confront Judge Joe Brown. He read her email perfectly.
Interesting. I've never seen that one.
Okay, go to
I can
YouTube,
just Google it.
The Judge Joe Brown comments of Kamala Harris and watch what your page do.
Appreciate your call. What do you think? How do you think a second member of the squad being tossed out affects Kamala's chances this fall? How do you think Pennsylvania Governor, who's Jewish, Josh Shapiro's being Jewish, affected Kamala's choices of him not being the VP nominee? I think it shows there's serious anti-Semitism in there, as Van Jones, of all people, said on CNN the other day. And do you think the squad's slow demise shows what's in store for Kamala? I don't see an appetite for radical leftism. She literally is a radical leftist, and it's okay because that's who she is. But the problem is she's hiding. And that's why I think she will collapse. Reading this part from Fox News' Bill Hemmer, I heard him say this morning. Country cannot do, he said on Fox and Friends, Trump did today. He talked about it with Jewish Americans. He said that he's thrilled Walz was Harris' choice. The country can't do well with these two people. And he talked about the anti-Semitism there. But it was Bill Hemmer and his comment that he said that made me go, wow. And Hemmer just said, we cannot be the only news people on network. Here we go. We can't be the only media company that talks about the fact that she's hiding and not doing press conferences or interviews for 17 days. He says, is it possible she runs out the clock until Chicago? That'll be extraordinary. What are you hiding? What's your team hiding from? And here's the thing. I wrote down next to it, that means eventual collapse. This woman's campaign is going to eventually collapse like it did when she was running as the Democrat in the Democrat primary. She got 0.0. She pulled 0.0 in the heavily black state of South Carolina. That's when she dropped out. She got no votes for president in the Democrat primary. She dropped out before she got one possible vote for the electoral in the primary race in 2020. Here's her policies. In fact, I'll share them next. I have it's an amazing amount, just bullet points of which policies she has that are radical left. And then I've got her saying these things. So I can literally go to any of these. That's boom, boom, boom. It's on a tweet. I've pinned it to the top of my Twitter feed. So you can see it, read it, and share it. It's on my feed at Chris Kroc Show, ChrisKrok. Follow me there. Same handle on Twitter and Facebook, I should say, let's hear that right now on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. I think this strikes across partisan lines. Anybody who has a loved one who is serving or has served, and anybody who hasn't but reveres the military and honors their service, has got to be angry at this guy with stolen valor. Here he is of one of the many things with stolen valor. This is Tim Walz. Saying he went to war and he never spent one day in combat. He left before they were deployed to Iraq. He was deployed once, and it was to Italy. In support of Operation Enduring Freedom, he didn't see any combat, ever. Not once. In fact, he left. He also lied about his rank. He says he is see if I can get this right. He has been saying for some time, and it's on his website, that he reached the level of U.S. Army's, let's see, he says as I think a master sergeant, and here we go. His biography on the official state website, and apparently his own website, says he retired as a command sergeant Major Walz. And in fact, today the Army National Guard, the Minnesota National Guard, confirmed that in fact he never got that rank. Army Lieutenant Colonel Kristen Algay, Minnesota National Guard State of Public Affairs officers, just said publicly, they confirmed it. He retired as a master sergeant. He did not ever reach the command sergeant major. Not. And he says that every time. And here he is lying, saying he saw combat, and the rifles he had then should not be rifles on our streets. Listen to this.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army, and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Weapons of war that I carried in war. That's bad. That's bad. You don't need me to say that. Okay, so you got stolen valor. It's unequivocal now. It's everywhere. And you have him saying that you can send your kid right now in Texas can run away at 12 and go to Minnesota and want to get his genitals cut off, saying he's a boy or he's a girl, but he wants to be a boy or vice versa. And they will not help you to get your child back. They will not prosecute anybody there. And in fact, they will protect him, and they won't cooperate with Texas, nor will they cooperate with the feds. They will allow your child to leave and go cut their hoo-ha off. Questions for you. There's so many more things. Oh, you're going to hear coming up next, his wife loved the smell of the burning down of Minneapolis. She kept her windows open to smell it. I'll play that in a minute. But I have questions for you. How likely do you think Kamala is right now to dump Minnesota Governor Tim Walz from her ticket soon? And how much harder would it be now, or could it be now, for Kamala, making it for her to win? How much harder now for her to win when she has a guy who openly has stolen valor? People in his unit, the people who took over for him for his job, literally say the guy abandoned us. That's the guy who you're hearing here. Here's another part of that interview, just randomly in the middle of the interview. Here.
2-year deployment as a command sergeant major. All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Barron says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered.
Then we fast forward to the election in 2018 in Minnesota, and you try at that time to get people's attention with this story, and also with what seems to be a very misleading statement that he...
There's a 5-minute and 8-second story that I've retweeted a bunch of times that was done in the news, and in fact, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune agrees it was all true. So here we are. How likely is it that Kamala's going to dump him? I think she should. I think she's made a terrible mistake. This is the first decision she did, and she's admitted it. This is her gut. This is what she will do running our country. She elects a draft dodger who is called Tampon Tim for giving fourth grade boys tampons in their bathrooms all over the state. And how much harder could it be now making it for Kamala to win? I think this does not help her. I do not. And in fact, I'm going to give you NBC News' guru today wrote a whole column on it that I'll share with you some excerpts from. He actually says that he's not going to help at all in the blue states, the blue wall states. So here we are. So what do you think? How does this affect her chances of winning, and how likely is it that she might dump him? I would dump him. This is a terrible embarrassment. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Now, I'm going to tell you whether she'll stick with him or dump him and why I think she's going to do that. This might surprise you. Coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM 93.3. Also, you're going to hear Kamala saying that she openly supports equity and that it means everybody should arrive at the same place, no matter how hard they work or how little they've worked, no matter how much they've showed up on time or not on time. They should all arrive at the same place, no matter how little you work. Isn't that crazy? You're going to hear about that next as well on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.